Hey guys, welcome to the Global Conscious Project. My name's Nicola and I am your host. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about Ascension. So Ascension is awakening. It's a spiritual term and it just basically means that you're opening yourself up to higher dimensions and that you're becoming more aware and that your senses and awareness is becoming heightened. So the reason I want to talk to you about this today is because I have been going through at lightning speed Ascension. It's just been very intense for a really long time. And yeah, I think that there's not enough talk about how fast Ascension can happen. There's a lot of information out there about Ascension symptoms, and what happens when you're going through Ascension, which I'll go into a little bit as well. But yeah, it can happen really, really fast and over a long period of time. So that becomes quite exhausting and it becomes quite intense. And yeah, I'm sure that there's other people who have been through or are going through this. So I think it's really important to shed light on just how much it can take energy-wise and how much it can impact your life. So basically, Ascension happens when you become more aware and when you're going through a spiritual awakening. So the symptoms of spiritual awakening are, there's so many, but there's cold and flu symptoms, which are often quite mild. So you might get a sniffly nose, a sore throat, you might get a bit of a headache or a throbbing in the third eye, just here between your eyes. You might feel quite energized. You might feel like your nervous system is going a million miles an hour because there's so much energy coursing through your body. You might start to feel and see different things. You might start to be aware of different entities around you. You'll feel quite tired generally. That's my main tell, is I just get absolutely exhausted. And you'll know that you need a lot of alone time, a lot of quiet time, a lot of downtime, and time just to allow all the processing to happen. So when it happens really fast, you can imagine how over a period of time, if you're constantly experiencing those symptoms, then it can become quite exhausting, and you do need to take a lot of rest and a lot of alone time after or during both, after this Ascension period. It is not a straightforward thing. So I've talked about this a little bit before with Lisa Bow, who's an art therapist and healer herself. And we talked about how it's not just you're leveling up every time, like you are, but it's never a straight line. It's always in a kind of messy fashion, and it doesn't just happen like, now you get to this level, so the next logical level is this one. It doesn't happen like that. You might open up in one aspect, but then you might still be quite closed off in another aspect, and then maybe that will catch up, and then you'll go back a few years, and then you'll go forward a few years in like the space of a week. Like, it can just happen so messily, and often it does. And this is something else that I always talk about, is how in the spiritual world and also the outside world who look at spirituality, I think that we often focus on the light and the beautifulness of it all, but there's so much messiness that has to happen to get to that point. And the beautifulness and light of it all isn't always like sunshine, rainbows and unicorns. It's often intertwined really messily with the messy, like yucky, not fun stuff. You have to go through the not fun, messy, really hard emotions often to get to that light and love and enlightenment that everyone talks about. And yeah, it's not always going to be a straightforward process. So you don't just go, oh, I've dealt with this emotion, now I'm going to be enlightened, or I've dealt with this emotion, now I have to deal with this one. It's not a straightforward process. It's in any way. It's messy and it's hard and it is incredible because it's really liberating, but it is not for the faint-hearted. Yeah, it's it's definitely a process. So when you're going through enlightenment or awakening for a lengthy amount of time, it's exhausting. It's like being on all the time and you can't switch it off. So you can imagine being sick for like months on end. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you're absolutely exhausted, like you're just dragging your feet a little bit energy wise, because like, yes, you can raise your vibration when you get to a certain point of awakening and you have like kind of control, but you have more control over the way that your energy is pulsing through your body and the way that you're opening up to different energy levels and higher vibrations. Like you can definitely make that happen for yourself, but the process of getting to that point is quite exhausting. And so if you are going through a prolonged period of intensive awakening and intensive ascension, I just really want to urge you to take that time out to really sit with it, to process it, and to actually rest. Because as soon as you don't rest, as soon as you keep pushing through, it's just, you will get sick. You will be told to rest in a way that you can't ignore. And the universe has a funny way, and the body has a funny way of doing that. It's if you keep pushing yourself beyond exhaustion, it will make you stop, and it will make you lie in bed and rest and do all of the things, either by making you physically ill or something that knocks you flat on your feet. You might fall over and break your toe or something like that, where you can't actually move. It has a funny way of doing that. And so the easiest way, obviously, is just to rest and take the time that you need while you're going through ascension. And the thing with ascension is, once you start, it doesn't just stop one day. It's an ongoing process. And once you dive into this rabbit hole of this spiritual world, or I guess ascending and awakening and being more aware of the world around you and being more aware of yourself and the universe and all of those amazing things, you can't turn back. There is no turning it off. Once you open that up, it is very hard to turn it off, because number one, you don't want to. It's a different way of life. It's a way of life where you feel like you're contributing, and you feel like you have an understanding of the world and your place in the world. It's a really beautiful lifestyle. It is, but I think it's really important to shed light on the not so beautiful aspects of it. I hope that makes sense, because it obviously it's not a tangible kind of thing to a point. Like it's all about energy and all these things that you can't see, the universe, like all of the things you can't see. And so it can be quite hard to put all of that into words sometimes. And I think that by doing so, we kind of also take away from the beautifulness of it, because it is something that we all experience individually and differently. Everyone's experience of ascension, of awakening, of spirituality is completely different. And I think that by putting it into words, it does take away from the experience that people are having, because by putting words to something, you can box it in and you can make it, I guess, a blueprint of how it's supposed to look. So this podcast and me putting this into words is not to do that. It is just to shed light on the intensity that awakening can have and can be, and to reassure you that you're not alone, and also just to tell you to rest because it's really important. And keep grounding, keep doing yoga, keep connecting to your body, keep meditating, keep doing all of the things that make you feel good, and keep raising your vibration. If you need to like slow it down, just calm down the intensity that you're doing all of that stuff. So just, expect less of yourself, and just let it flow, just let it sink in for a little bit. But often in my experience, it's not really possible to slow it down if you're already on a whirlwind of a roller coaster of ascension. I haven't figured out the magic formula anyway to slow it down, because I think that it's the universe's plan for you to ascend in the way that you did ascend. And so for me personally, that is obviously 1,000,000 miles an hour at 100% intensity. Sometimes dialing down to 80% intensity, but for other people it might be 10% intensity over 20 years. So everyone is completely different, and whatever you're going through is the universe's plan for you, and it is all going to be okay. So when you open yourself up to receive and to allow and to let go of expectations and to stop trying to control the outcome or control the process, it's going to be a nicer way to go through awakening. It's going to be a nicer, process, because it's one thing to go through the process, and it's a completely different thing to go through that process and have expectations of how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to feel, how you're supposed to be, how it's supposed to unfold. And I think if you remove those expectations and just let it unfold the way that it's supposed to unfold, which is much easier said than done if you're a control freak like me, but if you can do that and really tap into that and open yourself up to just experience rather than closing yourself off and trying to make it happen within you by controlling it, then it's going to be a lot easier for you and hopefully less painful and less of a mind game that you have to play. Obviously, all of those elements are still involved in Ascension, because it is like your body's expanding, your brain's expanding, and our brains and bodies are designed to keep us safe, kind of. So anything that it doesn't know, it kind of fears, and so it can instigate a flight or fight response in reaction to Ascension. And so it's really important to keep doing all of those grounding exercises and all of the things that work for you personally, and you do know what they are, to maintain like a level of sanity throughout the ascension. And the other thing that is really interesting is it can be quite hard to bridge the two worlds. So I find it quite difficult myself to be in my spiritual bliss and then come back and relate to people who are not part of that spiritual world, who are not like awakened or who are not into spirituality. I don't know, there's not really another word for this apart from spirituality, so I'm just going to use that, but don't get boxed in by that word. I find it quite hard to go between the two worlds, so being awake and surrendering and allowing what will be, and also I just love talking about it, to then go back and have like a normal conversation. I use normal in quotation marks because I guess there's no normal, but in Western society most people are not into spirituality or into awakening, or don't have the time or take the time to go down this path. And so when you're trying to converse with people who are like that or relate to people who are like that, it can be quite hard. So bridging those two worlds is a challenge for me, and I'm guessing it's a challenge for most people too, because for me, I want to help as many people as possible, and I know that I can't do that as easily by being in the full spiritualness of it, because if I want to relate to normal people, I have to come back to their world and then slowly bridge the two worlds, or bridge the gap. And so I feel like I need to keep going between the two worlds to kind of create that bridge for people. And yeah, that is quite exhausting. It's quite difficult, but I think it's necessary, because I think the path of enlightenment and awakening and ascension is the path forward for humanity. I think that it is really powerful for healing ourselves, our world, our illnesses, our diseases, our mental illnesses and diseases. And I think that it's just a really holistic, beautiful way of living, despite the messiness. But that's life. All life has messiness, and Ascension messiness is really no different. It just can be quite intense. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys feel the same. I'd love to know if you do. And I'd love to know like what your ascension path looks like, because I think that everyone's is completely different, and of course mine is going to be totally unique to me, but I'm sure that there's similarities between my crazy ascension million miles an hour roller coaster and your million miles an hour roller coaster of ascension. Or maybe you're not on a roller coaster, maybe you feel like you're quite calmly ascending and awakening. It would be really interesting to know. So yeah, if you want to like send me an email or shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, you know where I'm at the Global Conscious Project. Or if you want to join my main account, it's at Nicola Burbage Holistic Therapies, or on Instagram, Nicola Burbage HT. Yeah, would love to know how you're going with it, what your experiences are, and yeah, what other cool things have been happening. Because yeah, there's a lot of cool things that do happen during Ascension, and it's amazing. But yeah, it's a roller coaster. Anyway, I will talk to you guys soon, and yeah, I hope you're having a lovely day. Lots of love. Bye.